Hey everybody, and welcome to the UFC Fight Night, Joanna versus Waterson dissection. And we got a big fight coming up tonight between two of the top contenders in the women's strawweight division. Michelle Waterson has really been on a tear lately, and Joanna Jędrzejczyk's trying to kind of find her footing again after coming off a loss to Valentina Shevchenko, in which I think that match was just, she was undersized. Valentina's definitely one of the best in the world, but she's fought girls like Holly Holm, Amanda Nunes, like girls that Joanna probably wouldn't be able to hang with. So the fact that she won 5 rounds of third is pretty impressive, and I think it's an interesting main event because, like I said, I think Michelle Waterson looks better in her last couple of fights than she has throughout her entire career. So a lot of growth, and going to be a big question about whether or not it's enough to overcome Joanna Jędrzejczyk, though, who's one of the best in the world, best all time as far as women combatants go. And before we get into that, let's get into a little bit of news. And actually, let's start off by talking about the card last weekend, in which, I mean, Israel Adesanya became the middleweight champion of the world. And if you had any doubt about this guy's skill or expertise coming into this fight, they've been erased at this point, because Robert Whittaker is one of the most well-rounded fighters in the entire UFC. Not just the middleweight division, the way he mixes things up, the way he throws his hands, gets his kicks in there, mixes in takedowns, clinch work. I mean, and Israel dealt with the whole thing. And I'm not going to say he made it look easy, but he was dotting Whittaker up, you know? Like, there were some moments where Whittaker was catching with some stuff, but never any point in the fight where I felt like he was in real danger. And he's likely going to end up fighting Paulo Costa next, which is a great fight. But man, if you look at what Paulo Costa brings to the table, it's a lot of knockout power. It's, I mean, heavy hitting, right? I mean, the question is going to be, is that going to be enough to overwhelm someone like Adesanya, who's seen power in his kickboxing career, who's seen it in his UFC career? Like, I'm giving the edge to Adesanya just off the bat. I mean, prematurely, right, before looking into anything too much and digging into their skills. I think Adesanya is just, that striking is world-class and maybe a little bit underappreciated, because I think MMA is so evolved that there are these kickboxers and stuff who come in and everybody's like, oh, they're not going to be able to do what they did in kickboxing. It's UFC, it's MMA, it's completely different, right? But man, Adesanya's made a brilliant transition. If you look at even his Gastelum fight, and I mean, his takedown defense is on point, and he's got some really good jiu-jitsu, man. He's got them long limbs that get him out of some gnarly situations. So I'm expecting big things from Adesanya down the road. I know a lot of people are talking about a super fight with Jon Jones, but I'll tell you another fight while we're on the topic that makes me nervous is Darren Till moving up in weight to fight Kelvin Gastelum for his first fight at 185. And I know Darren Till is a big 170-pounder, but goddamn, man, I mean, that's a fucking... Kelvin Gastelum is a world beater. One of the best in the world at 185, and I just kind of compare it to... I mean, I know Luke Rockhold's been knocked out several times, and he's... I mean, he's a massive guy too, right? But I'm just saying, and he's got these injuries... I know that the situation is a little bit different with Luke Rockhold, but my point is, look at how hard the grappling situations were that he got in when he fought Jan Blachowicz. I thought that move up was dumb. I don't like that. I don't necessarily like Chris Weidman. Dominic Reyes and Chris Weidman isn't as bad because Dominic Reyes is still so young, but he's still a killer, man, and 20 pounds is a big fucking difference. I don't think you realize how big them guys are until you get a hold of them. Like Luke Rockhold, when he would get into those exchanges, he looked on his face, and how much of this had to do with his infection or whatever, and blah, blah, blah. He still looked exhausted, and Jan looked bigger than him. And I mean, Luke Rockhold has some incredible grappling, and Blachowicz was just able to stuff everything, and he knocked him the fuck out. I mean, I understand that it's a little bit different, but Till is still coming off a big knockout loss to Masvidal, and you're going to jump him up and put him against maybe the guy with the best hands in the entire middleweight division. That's scary to me. I don't think that's a smart move. Not saying Till can't win the fight, not saying he doesn't have the skills to win the fight. I just don't fucking like it, man. I mean, even look at what happened to Max Holloway, one of the best in the world, when he jumped up 10 pounds and fought Poirier. Nothing against Poirier. Poirier put on a fucking fantastic performance. I thought that his footwork was on point. He was beating him to the punch, but when he was hitting him, the power was more significant. When you're making, I mean, and that's only a 10-pound jump. So think about going 170 to 185. That's a big jump, right? And then think about going 185 to 205. That's a massive jump. So that's why when people talk about Adesanya, Jon Jones, pump the fucking brakes. I think Adesanya, I don't think there's any way in hell that Jon Jones could make 185 pounds. He's going to have a massive size advantage. So if that fight ever is going to come to fruition, I want to see Adesanya defend a couple more times. And I think the fear that people have is that John's going to move to heavyweight. But, I mean, unless Adesanya bulks up, I don't think he has a... I mean, that's a tough... But you're talking about John Jones, who, by the way, took Daniel Cormier down. Has great wrestling. It's not like he's just going to... I mean, it's a fight. And when you can wrestle someone who's smaller than you, massive fucking advantage. And, I mean, John Jones took down DC, who is the former heavyweight champion of the world. So that fight, to me, without Adesanya, getting some experience at 205, getting to feel what your body feels like, going through an actual fight where you've got adrenaline pumping and then it all dumps out and you've got, 20 extra pounds to carry around for the duration of a 25-minute fight. You need some warm-ups, man, especially before you fight John Jones, one of the baddest motherfuckers to ever do it. There's a reason that people like GSP and Anderson Silva never fought, and it's because of the weight differences. So, I mean, you're talking about GSP who can go down as small as 155 and Anderson Silva who's fought at 205, right? Like, there's a reason those things don't happen. Size, and another perfect example of another 15-pound jump is Gegard Mousasi when he fought Rory McDonald. I mean, Rory McDonald's one of the best 170-pounders in the world, and Gegard just dismantled him, and the size differential between the two was noticeably different. Like, I mean, Mousasi was a lot bigger than Rory, and he dotted him up, man. I mean, size makes a fucking difference. I mean, if you are trained and you're fighting somebody who's not trained and they're bigger than you, you're probably going to whoop their ass. But when you start talking about elite athletes, there's a reason weight classes exist. So, anyway, enough rambling about that. Another big piece of news is that Cody Garbrandt has decided, I don't know if he's officially moving his camp, but I saw an article that said that he's going to do some training with Mark Henry. And to be completely honest, I think that's fucking smart. I know that there's a lot of like, we're going to talk about this later with Kron, Gracie, and Cub Swanson, but like, there are a lot of people who, especially when they're young, I think they need to branch out and they need to try new camps because like, you don't want to get stuck doing the same things that you've been doing around, because you're so young and you're able to absorb so much. Like, to me, it makes perfect sense to go out and get that experience and gain as much as you can and find out what really works for you. And I mean, you're talking about Mark Henry, who has trained one of the best 145 pounders ever in Frankie Edgar. And Cody Garbrandt already has probably a better boxing base than every single person on that team. So if you can teach Cody how to mix in his wrestling, how to be a little bit more intelligent, how to pick his shots, I mean, that fucking Mark Henry camp, man. I look at Frankie Edgar as a prime example, but that boxing and wrestling style, you know what I mean? Those two things can get you by in the UFC because they're so important. And I think it's a smart move. I think it might be a chance for Cody to get his game more well-rounded, or maybe he'll just be around people that influence him a little bit. The idea, like, you got Cub Swanson, right, who was recently not allowed into a Gracie jiu-jitsu gym, and Kron was talking about, you got to be with your clan until you die. Maybe, but if you're getting your ass beat sometimes and things aren't going your way and you're not feeling right, man, sometimes you need to change, and especially when you're young and especially when your mentality is fragile. More fragile than somebody who has a career built underneath them and who has, you know what I mean? Like, and those losses, and the thing with Cody is that he had such a meteoric rise, and then he lost to TJ, and then he lost to him again, and it's like, man, he went up so fast. He was like on top of the world. I mean, Mike Tyson calling him his favorite fighter, blah, blah, blah. And then I don't want to call it a fall off, but he's had back injuries, and you got to wonder where that kid's at mentally. And I'm a fucking fan of anything you can do to better yourself as a fighter. You're seeing it with Kevin Lee moving up and training with Faraz Sahabi. And I think those styles mesh really well. He's trained people like GSP. And you've got like I would say Kevin Lee is a little more athletic, a little more versatile. Potentially, the ceiling is a little higher. I think when you watch Kevin Lee fight, man, the things that he's capable of, incredible. It's just mixing it all together and making the right decisions at the right time. But long story short, I think it's a smart move. If Cody feels like he needs to move, you got to fucking move, man. You can't, I don't think it's I don't know. I'm not in the fucking camp, right? I have no idea, but I would guess that it's not an ill will towards your camp type of thing. It's not like you blame them, but if you feel like you're sitting in place in a sport that is constantly evolving, got to get out the fucking door, man. Got to do something different. But, all right, I've been rambling for like 10 minutes already about those two things. So let's move on to the main card today. The first fight is going to be Erik Anders versus Gerald Meerschaert. And this is a great fight because you're talking about a guy in Erik Anders who brings tremendous knockout power. And believe it or not, as short as his UFC career has been, I mean, I think he's like what? He's 12-4, so he's 16 fights. I mean, he's not an amateur anymore. He's pretty seasoned. That's a lot of fights. I mean, the woman headlining the card tonight, I think, is 15-3, right? So she's got obviously their backgrounds are different, right? But Erik Anders has also fought people like Lyoto Machida, Elias Theodoro, Khalil Roundtree. Like, he's fought some real talent at 185 pounds. And he's most recent. I think he's got his groove back a little bit. He's coming off a big knockout win over Vincius Morea, first round KO. And man, he's a guy who I felt like, and it's not anywhere near comparable to what Cody went through, like his rise, but he did come in and he was quickly fighting guys like Lyoto Machida in a main event. You know what I mean? He fought Thiago Santos in a fight where he was absolutely exhausted at the end, like put everything he had into it. And I really like this kid's heart, and I really like his toughness. He's really fucking hard to put away. I think he's one of those guys, and a lot of fighters have this, right? But you have to kill him to get him the fuck out of there. Like, he was given everything he had just to get back on his feet and get back to his corner after the Thiago Santos fight, and his body just gave out on him. I mean, he put everything he had into that fight. And obviously, Thiago Santos recently challenged for the lightweight title. So, like, Erik Anders has seen some really high-level competition, whereas Gerald Meerschaert has seen it, but I don't think he's quite seen the talent that Erik has. And I mean, the thing about Gerald, though, is he's so fucking dangerous on the ground. I think he's got 21 submissions and like a 40-fight career, so he's got a big experience edge over Anders. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I mean, he's coming off a third-round guillotine over Trevin Giles. Before that, he dropped a split decision loss to Kevin Holland in what was a really good fight, a lot of grappling transitions. And then he got guillotined by Jack Hermanson, who, I mean, before his loss to Cannonier, was making a real tear through the middleweight division. So one of the things that I think is going to be really important in this fight is, I mean, if I had to pick like one thing for Anders to do and one thing for Meerschaert to do, Erik has to apply calculated pressure. If you overextend on your shots and you're getting in his face and you're not maintaining your distance and keeping him on the end of your power punches, you might get taken down, and that's where Gerald's really dangerous. I mean, his jiu-jitsu is impressive. For Gerald, he's got a mean left body kick. He fucking snaps that thing in there. Wow, it hits hard. And I think if he can utilize some kicks, mix up the leg kicks to limit the footwork, to slow down the pressure that Anders is going to put on him, I think he can find some success, and I think that he's going to have to fight a fight where he lures Anders into some big shots and then times takedowns off of when Anders is reaching or overextending on things. If he can get this fight to the ground or maybe battle it out, and I think the problem is that I think Erik Anders is going to be really strong in the clinch, and he's going to be a guy who just like, I don't think Meerschaert is going to find success in just putting him up against the cage and trying to take him down. I think that he's going to have really good timing on his shots, and he's going to have to mix in kicks and striking and kind of keep Anders at bay, keep him off of him, and then time the takedowns when Anders starts getting frustrated. But if I had to pick a winner for this fight, by the way, this whole fucking card is full of great matchups. If I had to pick a winner for this fight, though, I'd probably go Anders first or second round KO. I just think the pressure is going to be overwhelming, and I think Meerschaert's going to have a hard time getting him to where he has the best chance to win the fight. Tough fight, but I'm taking Erik Anders in this one. Next fight on the card is a really exciting fight between Matt Forvola and Luis Pena, and this is a featherweight bout. And Forvola is one of those guys, man. He had that fight against Lando Venata where, man, they were just slugging it out. They both hurt each other, really close one, and it ended up being a draw. Honestly, watching that fight, I don't know how you could pick a winner. I think the judges kind of got it right there, and he's really entertaining, and he's a purple belt. What this fight is, too, is it's a really interesting fight between two of the best gyms in the world. You got Matt Forvola, who's going to be cornered by the Serra Longo team, and you've got Luis Pena, who trains at an American Kickboxing Academy. And one of my favorite things about Pena when you watch him is he's a long, lanky fighter, so you expect him to utilize that reach advantage, and he does. But his top pressure and what I see from him and his ability to control people when they're on the bottom, very impressive. It's obvious that motherfucker has some influences from AKA. And he's got that long, lanky frame, and he's bigger than he's going to be bigger than Forvola when he fights him. So I think that's a massive advantage. And I know Forvola has fought guys like Jalen Turner who have that long reach, but I think Luis Pena is a little bit sharper on the feet, a little more calculated. So I think he's going to put Forvola in some spots where he can't necessarily reach him. And if it does go to the ground, here's the thing about Pena is he does give up some, like in transitions and stuff, and when he's in the clinch, you'll notice that he'll give up double underhooks sometimes. Like he'll get into positions where he can be taken down. He's been taken down in fights, but he's able to reverse and get back up on top where he's dominant. I think that the key for Pena to win this fight, obviously, anytime you talk about a short fighter and a tall fighter controlling range, you know that one of the things is going to be control the distance, right? So that's obvious. Yeah, but like I said, I think he's a little bit crisper than Jalen Turner, and I think he'll give Forvola more trouble on the feet. The question is going to be if Forvola can cover the distance, and if he can land a takedown, is Pena going to be able to get up off of his back and apply that pressure on top? I think this fight might come down to who spends more time on top on the ground. Just because I think Forvola, when he starts feeling that, when he starts feeling the punches coming, he starts getting like a barrage of them, and he's kind of having trouble defending them. Not that he can't knock Pena out or anything. If I had to give an edge to somebody, it would be Pena on the feet. I think he's going to shoot, and he's got pretty good jiu-jitsu, and he capitalizes on position. I love how he transitions from position to position, almost a little bit too quickly. Like he might give something up, but he's very fast. He jumps on opportunities. So whoever can control this fight from the top on the ground will win. And if Pena can keep it standing, I think he has an advantage. But you have to be careful with Forvola because he can drop you. He has real power, and like I said, he's fought a longer guy in Jalen Turner, and he covers distance really well with his jab, and he lands it pretty effectively. So I think that for him, covering that distance quickly, getting in and out of your strikes, and then trying to mix in a takedown and maybe engaging in some clinch. Favola's like a stocky built guy too. You can tell he's a strong motherfucker. So you might see these guys, Pena might be a little bit bigger, but Forvola might have a slight strength advantage now that I think about it. This is a really fucking hard fight to pick. I'm going with Pena. I think he's sharper on the feet, and I really like his jiu-jitsu, and I like the fact that he has long limbs. I think it'll get him out of a lot of hairy situations if it does go to the ground, and if he can get on top, man, I love watching him on top. That sounds fucked up to say, right? But he really does have an impressive and a smothering top game. And it's not just like he's laying there moving through positions. He's got a barrage of punches coming at your face as he does it. And you just never feel like he's in danger. People are trying leg locks on him. He's sliding out of it. And whatever, on to the next fucking thing, right? So I'm taking Pena. I don't know if he'll get a finish against Forvola. I think this is going to be a really fucking fun fight. Potential for a knockout, but I think there will be a lot of interesting transitions. I think this is honestly one of the fight of the night contenders. Next, we move on to a women's bout in the strawweight division between Mackenzie Dern, who's one of the most accomplished female grapplers of all time. I mean, multiple world championships in both gi and no gi. And she's fighting Amanda Ribas. Ribas? I always want to say Ribas when it's a Brazilian name, so fingers crossed that's right. Anyway, Amanda is extremely talented, coming off of a suspension, though, where she was, I don't know exactly what it was, but she was suspended 2 years by USADA for a performance-enhancing substance. She is 6-1, Mackenzie's 7-0. And I think that a lot of people, if you look at the odds on this fight, they're actually pretty close. And I think that's because if you look at Amanda Ribas's game, she's smart, like her jiu-jitsu is very good. I think she's competed in EBI before, but Mackenzie Dern, okay, also just had a baby in June or July. I can't remember which month, but so she's coming off of a pregnancy. And I know that Amanda Ribas has been suspended, but if you look at her most recent UFC fight where she beat Emily Whitmire via rear naked choke, I thought she looked much improved from when I watched her fight Jennifer Gonzalez over in Max Fight. I just thought that her strikes looked a little more crisp. Her aggressiveness against the cage and her technique with her takedowns and stuff and getting to the back, and just, she looked sharper. It's not like she got suspended for 2 years and was like, oh fuck, I'm gonna take these next 2 years off and just fuck around. No, she definitely improved her game. And I mean, it's been a year and a half since Mackenzie Dern has last fought, and like I said, she went through a pregnancy for 9 months. So that's probably why you're seeing the odds a little bit closer. But my thing is like with jiu-jitsu at that level, you don't forget it. And I think just by the nature of this fight, like I think that you have to be a real fucking expert on the feet or a real veteran to understand the spacing and everything and the distance that comes with MMA. I just think that at some point, this fight is going to end up in a grappling situation, and I'll never bet against Mackenzie Dern against any female probably in the world in a grappling situation. I mean, she beat Gabby Garcia, who, if you don't know who that is, just look her up. But I'm taking Mackenzie Dern, like second round, third round submission. I think he'd also be able to defend a lot of the stuff that she wants to do. But I just think that there is such a difference in world-class jiu-jitsu and people who are really good at jiu-jitsu. But we'll fucking find out. This fight might come down to Amanda's ability to, like I said, can you pick her? Are you sharper than Mackenzie on the feet? Are you picking her apart on the feet? Have you been doing enough in camp to deal with? I don't think that you can do enough in camp to deal with Mackenzie's jiu-jitsu, but you can. Like I said, though, I just don't think that the octagon experience for Amanda is going to be there to be able to control the distance and keep it on its feet the entire fight. I just think that it's extremely hard to go through an MMA fight, especially without real knockout power, like at 115 pounds. Not that she can't clip her, catch her, or knock her out. I'm just saying, like, it's not like watching heavyweights fight, right? But, like, if you were watching Ngannou and Verdum, you would assume that Verdum would have an advantage on the ground, but Ngannou has that knockout power where he can put him out. Amanda doesn't quite have that advantage, you know what I mean? So I just think it's going to be hard for her to not engage in a grappling situation, and I really think Mackenzie will have an advantage regardless of the credentials of Amanda once it hits the ground. Too fucking good. Just my opinion. We're going to find out, but it's a good fight. Don't get me wrong. It's interesting. But if I'm betting money, I'm betting on Mackenzie. Ooh, this next fight is one that I'm really fucking excited for as well. Lightweight bout between Nico Price and James Vick. James Vick's currently riding a 3-fight losing streak. First loss was to Gaethje, big overhand right. Knocked him out cold up against the cage. Then he lost to Paul Felder, unanimous decision. That was just... So the thing about James Vick is he's really long, and it makes him really hard to hit, but he leaves his chin hanging in the air, and it leaves him susceptible to things. Like, his method for dodging punches is to lean back, and when he gets into exchanges, he leaves his chin hanging too. Look at the Dan Hooker fight, knocked him out with that big left hand. And one of the things that Felder did really well is I think Vick was prepared for that overhand right that Felder was throwing. I think Felder might have caught him with it a time or two, but he was trying to counter. When Felder would throw stuff, like when Felder would throw big punches, Vick was trying to come in and counter, and there were several times in that fight where on the way in, when James was coming in to counter, Felder would whip out a quick spinning elbow and smack him with it, like land flush, and it was like, ooh, man, Felder's a boss. Seeing all that shit coming and just knowing that James Vick likes to play that counter game, that's a brilliant move because the timing on it, and it was just like establishing that timing that early in the fight. Paul Felder is one of the best in the world, no doubt. But my point is, where I was going with this, James Vick does really well at distance. When he's luring you into punching, and then he comes over top of your punches or inside of your punches and is countering, right? Like, he lures you in, hits you, get out. That's the kind of fight that he needs to fight when he's going against Nico Price. I actually think that James Vick, this is another fight of the night contender. This is a fucking great fight. Nico Price is never in a boring bout. He's coming off a loss to Jeff Neal that he got knocked out in the second round. And Jeff Neal really put his wrestling expertise on display in that fight. But got into closed guard and I got to talk about a moment in this fight that really bugged me. Jeff Neal was in Nico Price's closed guard. And his corner, he's landing big shots, man. I mean, shots that you've seen people get put out before. And I mean, he's smacking his head off the fucking mat. And his corner is yelling continuously, pass, pass, pass. I don't understand it. I mean, I didn't get it. Like, there has to be a balance, in my opinion. And I don't know the relationship between these guys, the coaches and the fighter. But to me, it seemed like Jeff it wasn't like Nico was doing anything threatening in guard. And I understand guard's not where you want to hang out. But when you're landing shots that are that meaningful, you gotta just let your fighter work. If he passes more to get swept and lose the position, I mean, what a massive disadvantage you've just put him in, right? But when you're just sitting in closed guard, I mean, the guy's options are yes, there are attacks from there, but if he can't submit you from his back in his closed guard and you're dotting him up, like hitting him hard in the face, you got to keep doing that shit. And he ended up finishing Nico Price. He ended up finishing him. I mean, I don't know, man. I think that sometimes the corners obviously doing what they feel is best for the fighter. I just thought that, like, in that particular situation, you got to let your fighter. And I'm glad that Jeff Neal followed his own advice as opposed to his corners in that certain situation. I don't say that often. I always think that guys don't listen to their corner enough. But anyway, before that, another crazy fight that Nico Price had was against Tim Means, in which he was getting dotted up. I mean, it looked like he was going to get knocked out. Tim Means was hitting him with some nasty shots, really precise, looking like, I mean, a real fucking veteran in there, right? And then Nico Price knocks him out with like I think it was like under 20 seconds in the first round and just flatlined him, man. Nico Price has real knockout power, and you've seen it on display several different times, right? But in terms of how this matchup is going to play out, that crazy, it's not, the thing with Nico Price is that he's crazy, but he's not technical. Like, he's a very technical fighter, but with that wild and crazy style, if Vick doesn't get into a firefight, because like I said, when he gets into those exchanges and he's trying to go first and he's just so tall, man. I feel like when you've got long limbs, it takes longer to retract them. So when you're fighting someone like Dan Hooker who's throwing sharp combinations, I mean, if you get into a war where you're both throwing combos, if his technique's shorter and if he's drawn his punches back faster than you, I mean, think about it. I mean, it's obviously such a minute detail, right? But if Vick is throwing all the way out and Hooker's throwing all the way out, if he returns his fist first, he's going to be in position to throw his other punch next. And I think that's the difference maker. So for Vick, he has to learn to utilize his height. If you're going to go first, don't go in there and get into combination. Don't start throwing combinations on the inside and stay in the guy's punching range. Jab him, teep him, use those side kicks, keep him at bay. And then when he starts coming in on you because he's trying to reach you, that's when you come over, you back up and you start hitting him with shots as he's coming in. I think if Vick plays his cards right during this fight, he'll get the win. But I'm taking Nico Price. I think his aggressiveness is going to be it's going to be overwhelming for Vick early. And I think he's going to end up getting in there and stunning him and finishing him again, which will be, I mean, a shame for Vick if he loses. That'll be 4 fights in a row that he's lost. And I'd like to see him get back on the winning track. I'd like to see James Vick go and fight a smart, technically sound fight. Do the things that are going to get you the win. Don't engage in, you know what I mean? Like, and you can't let people, like with Gaethje, he was letting him pressure him. You can't let him pressure you like that. You have the reach advantage. Keep that motherfucker at bay. Keep that jab out in his face. Throw some teeps. You know, I think if Vick does the right things, he'll win this fight. It's just a question of whether he's going to. But I'm taking Nico Price, second round KO. Oh, man, this next fight is tough to pick too, man. A featherweight bout between Cub Swanson and Kron Gracie. And Cub is one of the most veteran. I mean, he's got, his record's 25-11. I mean, you're talking about a guy with 36 fights to his name. Been in the game forever. I'm going to list off his losses real quick. And Shane Burgos might be relatively unknown, but other than that, you've got Renato Moicano, maybe relatively unknown, but those are 2 young studs that are coming up through this division right now. After that, though, you got Frankie Edgar, Max Holloway, Ricardo Lamas, Chad Mendez, Jose Aldo, Jens Pulver. And then he lost his debut to somebody that I didn't know. But of those, I mean, those are some of the most elite fighters in the 145-pound division that Cub has losses to. And he's on the first real skid of his career where he's lost 4 in a row. So he's kind of in dangerous territory here. And he's going in to fight Kron Gracie, who is, I mean, direct lineage of Carlos Gracie, right? I think it goes Carlos, Helio, Hickson, Kron. So, I mean, and one of my instructors one time explained it to me this way. Every time you learn like a jiu-jitsu move, it's somewhat in a way watered down, right? Just because you're not getting it from the actual source. Like whoever invented the move, like a lot of the Gracie stuff, right? Like you're getting it from a different branch, and everybody has their own little variations that they teach you and pieces that might be missing when you receive instruction. Kron Gracie is straight off the fucking tree, baby. Right off the trunk. You know what I mean? I mean, like I said, direct lineage of Carlos Gracie. And obviously he's going to have some of the best jiu-jitsu in the world. He's 5-0 right now. He's coming off his first UFC win over Alex Caceres, in which he took him down and strangled him. I mean, once they got to the ground, there wasn't really a hope for Caceres. Everything is so tight. But I'll tell you what, I did watch a couple of Kron's fights over in Ryzen. And I've seen this before too. Like you see it when guys fight Demetrius Johnson. I am really impressed with some of the fighters that I've seen over in Asia. Their grappling ability, man. even if it's just staying alive. But I've seen people take Demetrius Johnson's back. I mean, like, they get out of some tricky situations. And I mean, I think Gracie fought one guy and he caught him in a triangle, but it was a first round finish, but the rounds are 10 minutes long. I mean, the guy was fighting him off for like 9 minutes. That's a long time to be defending yourself from a Gracie on the ground. So I think there's a real explosion of talent over there that we might be kind of missing the boat on. If you're not tuning into like ONE FC and Ryzen, I think you need to start. I think there's real world-class talent over there, and you're missing out if you're not watching it. Anyway, Kron Gracie's going to be fighting Cub Swanson. And, I mean, obviously the question is going to be, is Cub going to be able to keep this on the feet? Now, you know how I talked about earlier how Amanda Hebos is going to have trouble against Mackenzie because you got a 15-minute fight. What are the odds that it doesn't get into a grappling situation at some point, right? With Cub just might be able to keep it on the feet. I think that he's a veteran. I think that, like, when you got Brian Ortega, you're talking about somebody who's a little more integrated into MMA, had some bigger fights. This is Kron Gracie's first real big fight. And if you watch Cub Swanson on the feet, man, he's no fucking joke. He hits hard. He has knockout power. He has great footwork. He's never out of position, really. You know what I mean? And I think that he will have an advantage on the feet against Kron. And I think that it might be wise of him to kind of put that pressure on him early and not let, because one of the things that you'll see, and I don't know if this is going to be an issue with Kron going forward in the UFC yet, but jiu-jitsu people generally have a tough time taking guys down. So Cub might have a little more leeway if the takedown isn't there like a high-level wrestler, right? Like if the takedowns for Kron aren't there, Cub might have a little more leeway to throw his hands around and capitalize on that stuff. I've gone back and forth about this fight a lot just because if Kron does get it down to the ground, I mean, I think it's going to be a tough night for Cub, but I do think that Cub has, if he can maintain his distance and he can, keep that pressure on Kron and not let Kron start to implement his game plan, I think he has a chance to have a good night. I think he has to move a lot. I think he has to be very mobile. But I think he has a chance to win. And here's the thing, though. Something to consider is that Kron Gracie, I'm pretty sure, does a lot of training with like the Diaz brothers out in Stockton. So you know that he's not walking into this thing without fucking a legit striking, like some legit striking coaches around him, and in particular boxing. So don't be surprised if Kron Gracie comes out and starts throwing them hands around, man. I mean, I know everyone's expecting him to win via submission, if he does win, but I think this is a good fight. Ah, fuck. Official pick, though. Man, I'm going to go with Cub just because I want to believe that he's going to win. I don't want to see him lose 4 in a row. And I think that Kron Gracie has so much room for growth still. Like, he's 5-0, and I think that his rise will be I just don't want to see Cub lose, you know what I mean? I think he's on the verge of retirement maybe. I don't know where he's at there. But 5 in a row would be a tough pill to swallow. And like I said, I do think he has the potential to keep this thing on his feet. So we'll see. I'm going to take Cub by unanimous decision. Maybe a knockout finish, but if it comes, I think it'll be late because I think you'll see Cub be patient. He doesn't want to get into grappling exchanges early. He wants to play a smart game. All right, and finally, we're moving on to the headliner between Joanna Jędrzejczyk and Michelle Waterson. And for Michelle Waterson, this might be a fight where she's trying to get that mom champ. This is probably the fight that's going to thrust her into the title shot. I think if she wins this, she'll finally get a crack at Weili Zhang. Okay, so every time I look her name up, it's either Zhang Weili or Weili Zhang. It's always reversed, so I never know what to fucking call her, and she's a UFC champion. So I need to find some clarification. If any of you guys know which way it's actually, because I swear to God, every time I look it up, it's like it's spelled a different. And I know that happens sometimes with like the naming conventions. I'm very confused on it. But if you guys know the way that it's actually pronounced, leave it in the comments because I honestly don't know. Anyway, Michelle Waterson coming off a win over Karolina Kowalkiewicz, and that was her most impressive performance to date. And I really think that if you look at her Instagram, when she goes through a weight cut, she is fucking shredded. I really thought that Karolina would have like an advantage going into that fight, but Michelle looked great. She looked powerful. She looked sharp. She looked like she was, everything was just flowing in that fight. I thought it was the best she's ever looked, and I think she's riding a 3 or 4 fight win streak right now. And the problem is that she's fighting Joanna, who's still one of the best in the world. I mean, regardless of her 2 losses to Rose Namajunas, her loss to Valentina, who, like we talked about in the beginning, Valentina was just bigger. Valentina's fought Amanda Nunes to a decision twice. Close decisions. Man, this is a tough fight because, like I said, it's so hard to tell because Michelle has looked so much improved, and Joanna just looks like when she fought Teacher Torres, she looked back on point, right? It's so hard to gauge her talent in comparison to girls who are growing rapidly, because I feel like Joanna was so far ahead of the curve before she fought Rose. Man, this is a tough fight to pick. I think that Joanna's going to win. I think it'll be a decision. I think this is going to be a tough fight for Michelle. I just think that Joanna's kickboxing and her striking and her precision and her ability to like not let people put a pace on her and not overpower her. And when you do like fighting Jessica Andrade, when Andrade would take her down, right back up to the feet. She never accepts any positions. And I think that if Michelle's going to win this fight, I know she's a talented striker, but I think that she's going to need some grappling exchanges mixed in order to keep Joanna honest. And I don't think that she's going to be able to hold Joanna down and control her. I'm taking Joanna in this fight. I think it'll be a unanimous decision or maybe even like a TKO. I think Joanna's going to come out, and I think Joanna's driven. You heard all this stuff about the weight cut, not a big deal, right? She ended up making weight just fine. I just think Joanna's going to, and also that experience of being in multiple world title fights and going 5 rounds, this main event spot she's used to, you know? Like this is probably a little bit less pressure than a title fight too. And I just think, like I said, I think her strikes are going to be faster. They're going to be more precise, and I think she's going to dot Waterson up. And every time Waterson tries to take her down, even if she does manage a takedown, I don't think she'll be able to hold her there. So we'll see. Like I said, we got an interesting night of fights lined up. I mean, I'm excited for every single fight on this main card. For a free card, this is fucking incredible. I think it's going to be on ESPN+. Yeah, because the Weidman and Reyes card will be on ESPN next week. So let's go through, recap the picks real quick. I'm going to take Erik Anders, 2nd or 3rd round TKO, or KO, you know, whatever. I'm going to take Luis Pena, but I could see this fight going either way. Holy fuck. I keep fucking with this thing because it's new, and now I don't know. I'm going to leave it alone because I'm almost done. Anyway, I'm taking Luis Pena. I think that this fight might come down to who controls top position on the ground. Forvola does have some knockout power, though, so it's not like Pena can't get clipped, but I'm giving the advantage to Pena both on the feet and then for controlling the person on the ground. I think Forvola's best path to victory is going to be landing that jab, staying mobile, timing takedowns, and seeing what he can do when he can put Pena on his back. Getting into clinch positions might be a good idea because, like I said, I've seen Luis Pena give up double unders and stuff that he's able to kind of get out of hairy situations if maybe somebody better had taken him down, but I still like Pena a lot in this fight. I'm taking Mackenzie Dern over Amanda Hebos. Like I said, I just feel like at some point it's going to go to the ground, and when it goes to the ground, I'm not going to bet against Mackenzie. I like Nico Price over James Vick, but if James Vick fights a smart fight, and I guess by picking Nico Price, I'm kind of making an assumption that he won't. I just think that Nico Price is going to come out aggressive, and it's going to catch Vick off guard, and it's not going to let him get his timing down on his counters. I think Nico will fight. He's a very weird style to prepare for, and I think it's a dangerous fight for Vick. But if Vick maintains that distance, doesn't lean his head straight back, you know what I mean? If he engages first and keeps the person at bay and doesn't get into firefights, I think he's got a good chance to win the fight. But I'm still taking Price. I'm going to take Swanson over Kron Gracie just based on MMA experience and the fact that Cub he's been around the game so long, and I like him so much, and I don't want to see him lose 4 in a row. And it's not like I don't think Cub doesn't have a chance to win. I'm picking him more out of rooting because I really don't know what's going to happen. Like if Kron gets you to the ground, it's hard to bet against him, but the question in this fight is going to be, A, what do Kron's takedowns look like? And B, what's Cub's striking going to look like? You know, is he going to be able to keep him off of him? And like I said, you see jiu-jitsu people sometimes struggle to finish a takedown. Damian Maia, Mackenzie Dern, come to mind immediately. But we'll see. And then I'm taking Joanna just because that championship medal that she has, the fact that she doesn't accept takedowns, she doesn't stay on her back for long if she does get taken down. She's very precise, very calculated, and her gas tank is endless. So there we go. That recaps the UFC Fight Night Joanna versus Waterson card. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you like what you heard or if you have anything to say, leave comments down below. I'll try my best to answer them or address them in a future podcast. Click the subscribe button. That helps me out. And give us a follow on Instagram. I've got stuff on Facebook. We're on Instagram at mma.analysis. I have a Facebook, but I don't really use it. I think Instagram's the best one. Just post, boom, done. And I think I've got a Twitter account set up, but I literally never post to it. So, yeah, thank you guys for tuning in, and enjoy the fights tonight. Bye-bye.